Hello and welcome to Your Broken Galaxy. I am Broken, and today I'm answering the awe-inspiring question, what would happen if Padme fell in love with Jar Jar? Buckle up, everyone. This one's going to be a weird one. So, Padme is being escorted through the streets of Theed, and suddenly, two human Jedi come jumping down from a little bridge. However, she is entranced by the Gungan who fell. He gracefully caught himself on the bridge on the way down to protect himself. Unlike the Jedi, he didn't have any control of the Force, she thought. Once the Jedi had defeated the droids, she was just enthralled by the carefree and fit Gungan standing before her. His species was always mysterious to her, but mystery was enticing. After the Jedi led them away from the streets, Qui-Gon started talking to them about leaving Theed. Padme is just trying to compose herself. I mean, you can see, the focus on her face, trying not to look over at Jar Jar and give away her intrigue. She doesn't want to go, but when her body double Sabe says that it's danger for all of them, Padme doesn't want to look weak in front of the manly frog that she's become so quickly enamored with, and she ends up saying that they're brave. So, to her heart's delight, Padme gets to travel with this Gungan now. They end up on Tatooine, and an annoying little human boy starts flirting with her. Now, Padme was trained to be hospitable and treated the boy with kindness, but every spare thought she has is about the incredibly attractive Gungan. He played with the droids. He uses his impressive tongue to grab food from across the table. He wasn't like any other man she had ever met. As she is desperately trying to win the Gungan's attention, she feels like the best way that she can do it is by getting her people to come together with his people and honor him in front of all of his people. So after their adventures on Tatooine and Coruscant, she finds her chance. She tells Sabe that they need to go and meet with the Gungan leadership, and Padme takes the chance to reveal herself as queen. Jar Jar is shocked, but Padme thinks she's played her cards pretty well. She talks to Boss Nass and convinces him to let Jar Jar become a general. This means that as a high-ranking politician, and he as a general, she might be able to even have a marriage alliance with him. Unfortunately, Jar Jar doesn't pick up on her advances. They end up winning the war, but Padme's heart is broken, for the man of her desire hasn't even noticed her. Once Padme leaves the role of queen, she is asked to be a senator. She wasn't planning on doing this, but she realizes that this could be another chance, and she asks Jar Jar to join her staff as a junior representative. She spends years working alongside him, pining for him the entire time, but she doesn't let it get in the way of her duties. Quite the contrary, Padme believes that the better senator she is, the more likely that Jar Jar will come to fall for her. Eventually, someone tries to assassinate Padme, and the boy she found so many years ago on Tatooine comes to see her. She can tell right away that he is just super into her, totally infatuated. It's like, back off, dude. Little did she know, but Jar Jar had also begun to have feelings for her. He never thought that she would like a frog like him, though. So when Anakin shows up and starts telling Jar Jar about how he's been thinking about Padme every day, the frog's little heart just bursts with sadness. How could the woman that he loves and has come to admire so much care for him when someone as handsome as Anakin is right there waiting for her? Anakin gets aside to guard Padme on Naboo, and Padme, with deep sadness, tells the man that she loves that she is leaving him in charge, and that he has to step into the role of representative while she is gone. Jar Jar, with great humility and sorrow, accepts the role, but Padme is just so broken over having to leave him that she cuts him off mid-sentence, and as she leaves the room, she's doing everything she can not to start crying. She realizes her only chance to avoid tears is to turn it into anger, so she starts venting and complaining to Anakin. They end up on Naboo, where Anakin is just going over the absolute most ridiculous attempts to win her affection, and she is doing everything she can not to visibly cringe at every single word he says. She even publicly scolds him in front of the leaders of Naboo. However, she does have a heart, so she ends up helping him go to Tatooine and save his mom. After he goes off alone into the desert, she just keeps thinking of Jar Jar. She's not even concerned about Shmi or Anakin. Her heart's just on her beloved frog. When Anakin comes back and tells her that he's slaughtered an entire village, she is terrified. She gives him a hug because she thinks that by showing him this kind of affection, it's the best way that she can keep herself alive. After they get to Geonosis, Anakin ends up just slaughtering a huge number of Geonosians despite her orders to find a diplomatic solution. They end up getting rescued, but she is doing everything she can to stay away from Anakin. Padme ends up back on Coruscant, and she tells Jar Jar about how Anakin killed the Tuskens, and Jar Jar reaches out, puts his hand on her shoulder, and says, "Misa is gonna protect you!" And she can't take it any longer. She says, "Oh, Jar Jar," and leans in and kisses him gently on the lips. She pulls back and looks longing into his eye stalks, and Jar Jar says, "Misa loves you, Senator!" And Padme flushes red and says, "I love you too, Jar Jar." Then they suddenly hear the snap hiss, and a blue light falls on them both. They look to the door, and standing there, with clenched teeth and rage in his eyes, is Anakin. "Jar Jar, I trusted you," he can barely say over the emotion. "Oh, I'm a-thinking you should set the lightsaber down, Annie." And Padme, gripped by fear, grabs Jar Jar by the arm and whispers, "Help." Anakin points his saber at Jar Jar and says, "All I have to decide now is whether or not I'll share your frog legs with Yoda or eat them myself." And he jumps at Jar Jar. Jar Jar stands and stretches his arm out towards Anakin, who stops dead in the air. "I don't think so, boy," he says with perfect articulation. Padme is intrigued by this new side of Jar Jar. "I wanted to use your power. I wanted to befriend you, but I fell in love, and now she is all I care about. You have become a rival." Anakin, now standing in confusion, looks at Jar Jar sweep away part of his representative robes and pull out the black hilt of a lightsaber. It ignites with a blade that burns red with the hot fury of all of his passion for Padme. Anakin, now ready to take on a Force user, jumps again at Jar Jar. He swings with all of his might, but Jar Jar steps to the side and stabs him through the heart. Padme runs to him and throws her arms around him. "I'm sorry, Padme. There's one more rival I must take care of, and I need your help." "How?" she asks. "Palpatine is a Sith Lord. Years ago on Naboo, I recruited him, but he's gone mad with power. If I defeat him, then the galaxy will be saved, and you and I can live the rest of our days in peace on Naboo. Can you set up a meeting between him and yourself? I'll go like I usually do as a representative." So the two go to the Chancellor's office and get in. As soon as the door shuts, Jar Jar draws his lightsaber. "So," Palpatine says, "you finally decided to do away with the ruse." "Guards!" Palps yells to the two guards who come running in. Jar Jar immediately decapitates them both. And Palpatine is like, "For goodness sake, guys, you had one job!" He draws his lightsaber and jumps towards Jar Jar, but the Gungan is ready. He shoots lightning, totally catching Palps off guard, and as the Sith puts up his saber to block it, Jar Jar throws his own saber at Palpatine, cutting off both his legs at the ankles. Jar Jar pulls Sidious's own saber to himself with the Force and stabs him in the heart. "It's done," he says. He turns to Padme, who runs to him and embraces him. She reaches up to kiss him, and the two let their passion take over. Unfortunately, due to a horrible oversight in the difference of their anatomy, Padme choked to death on Jar Jar's 3-foot tongue while they were making out. So that is my take on Padme and Jar Jar falling in love. In the future, I might do another one of these videos where Jar Jar falls in love after Padme and Anakin have fallen in love. If you guys want to see that, let me know in the comments below. I'd probably give it at least a year until I would do another Jar Jar Padme love story, though. If this is the first video of mine you have seen, I don't usually sound like this. I have been sick for a week, particularly with a bad sore throat the last few days. But I still want to try and record these videos, get 2 of them out a week. I am trying. My YouTube goal, the big dream that I have, is to have more subscribers. than the official Star Wars YouTube channel. I have 266 at the time of recording, and Star Wars has 4.03 million, so I've got a long way to go. With that being said, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and all that garbage.